I'm a guy that's 24. Each day I build some more. I like episode 7 and episode 8. I'm Rich Boy J. Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here, back in with another video, and this is going to be another LEGO Star Wars MOC showcase. This video is meant to highlight some of the best MOCs that I've come across on the internet, so if you find any of them impressive, just please follow the links in the description and go support those builders. They certainly deserve it. The first MOC we're going to take a look at today is a Tatooine Homestead by Mathew Trudrung. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. First thing that stuck out to me about this MOC is the large homestead style home over to the left side of the build. It looks so good. I like that dome technique quite a bit. It works actually really well for the Lars homestead, and it really does beg the question like why we haven't ever gotten a set of the Lars homestead in LEGO. I think Aunt Beru has been criminally disrespected by the lack of an official minifig for her, so LEGO should really make that happen at some point. But that's besides the point. The actual MOC is just depicting, you know, like a calm time on Tatooine. There's basically a couple who have a home, and there's actually a little farm to the bottom right side of the MOC, and I quite love that section a lot. This MOC is obviously elevated, as you can tell by the black border, but I love that they're in like adding depth to the MOC, not only just with that section to the right where you can see the farm kind of deep down into the MOC, but even with the homestead over to the left side. Like, it's pretty critical, honestly, to have it where you'd walk down into the home there. So I like that he utilized the elevation of the MOC to his advantage, like not just with the homestead, but also with a little farm over to the right side. If you look at the top right corner of the build, you can see there is a Twi'lek woman, and she is tending to some goats, or Star Wars goats. I don't know what the equivalent of a Star Wars goat would be, but basically they're raising animals here, which is kind of cool to see. It's nice to see some real world things replicated in Star Wars. She's carrying a bucket of water. I also like the moisture evaporators that are in this build. I think those both look really nice. They're not both the exact build, which gives a little variation to the MOC, so I actually really appreciate that. And the main part of the MOC, I guess, would be the 2 or 3 Jawas that are actually trying to sell some droids to this Rodian right here. So I don't know, there's a lot of like life and character in this build. It's not often we see like Tatooine homes that aren't Luke's, so I like this build showing, you know, how other people are living on Tatooine. You know, people who maybe necessarily don't want to go get involved with the battle against the Empire, but are just, you know, happy with their calm and peaceful life on Tatooine. I think it's kind of cool to see that side of things. I mean, as boring as Tatooine might seem, some people I'm sure were perfectly content with their farming lives there. I think the inclusion of the blurg is also pretty interesting over to the left side. I think that's actually someone else's build. I'm not exactly sure whose it is, but it's a nice looking build. I've seen that blurg build a few times around on the internet, but looks good. Honestly, should probably build a few of those for myself. I really love this picture right here, just with the blue background. It gives a nice like sky effect in the back, and he's even actually repositioned the Jawas. Looks like the Jawas are actually riding around on the blurg trying to pawn these droids off on someone. And I don't know, there's just something so nice and calm and peaceful about this MOC. I love it so much, especially the Twi'lek in the back. Like, she has the cape, she's carrying the bucket of water. There's so much life and character to this build. Also would love to mention the windmill over to the right side. I love the use of those Ninjago blades on the windmill. Next up, we have a Dagobah MOC by Playmation. Yes, that Playmation. And there's so many cool things about this MOC. It's basically every important part of Dagobah that you would want represented in a MOC. Up in the foreground, we have the X-Wing crash in the water, and he uses a really cool snot technique with black bricks to simulate the water. And then he actually has like trans black pieces kind of around the X-Wing, showing water like forming up on it, maybe like infused with some moss and whatever other disgusting things might be in the Dagobah swamp, but it looks really good. I also really like the coloring he used on the wing. It's covered in mud and vines, and it just looks really good. I really love the modifications he actually made to the X-Wing build to make it look more realistically crashed into this Dagobah swamp. I think the trees in this build also look pretty good. The use of those dark green seaweed pieces are pretty crucial to any Dagobah MOC, honestly. I just love the scene that is recreated here. Luke feels like he's being watched and he pulls that pistol out on Yoda. Could you imagine if Luke had more of like a Han Solo type of personality and he would just blasted a hole right through Yoda's chest and then asked questions later? I'm glad Luke's not that kind of person. I'm honestly not sure if I've ever seen this specific scene recreated in Lego. Like, I've seen Dagobah scenes, but maybe not ever specifically Luke pulling a pistol on Yoda. There's just something really funny about that aesthetic. I also have to be really happy he's using the updated versions of these figures. That dirty R2 figure is so nice. Of course, the Luke on Dagobah figures, also from the most recent Yoda's Hut set. These are all just great figures, and I'm really glad Lego put out that set since we went so long without any updated versions of Luke and R2 on Dagobah. The little hot dog in the background is also kind of a funny Easter egg for the food that Luke had laying around. Here's a closer look at the back of the X-Wing so you can really get an appreciation for the details and various pieces he added to it to make it look more dirty and like it had been submerged in that swamp water. This video clip shows a pretty cool feature he added into the MOC. It's nice because if you aren't up this close to it, it's basically just looks like a cave with some shadows, but as you press down on the button on top, you can actually see Darth Vader in there, which is, I think, such a cool inclusion to the build. Like, I could totally see if Lego ever did like a Master Builder series or a bigger scale Dagobah set, them including something like this, because this is such a fun feature. Like, you'd never expect Vader to be in there, but as you press the light, you can see he's hanging out in there. So I really do like that he included some part of the cave sequence on Dagobah. Next up, we have a Felucia MOC by Hypolite Bricks, and there is just such a great use of color in this build. As soon as I saw it, I instantly knew, gotta talk about this on the MOC showcase. So we're first gonna start over to the left side. There's so much vegetation, and that's really what Felucia's known for, this wild, almost fantasy-like vegetation that grows on this planet, and this builder does a wonderful job at it. I love the use of those like tentacle pieces with the flower builds on the end of them. Those big blue flower petals, I actually really like the use of those. That's actually, I think that was a pick-a-brick part, and I remember seeing it just kind of being like, what the heck would I ever use this for? Like, it kind of looks like something you might see on Felucia, but other than that, I don't know what I'd use it for. And this builder just uses it to perfection. I think that what he was going for with the various flowers over to the left side of this MOC are just fantastically executed. It all looks really nice, and there's just so much nice color, especially with like the dark green grass towards the front of the build. But then as you go over to the right, you get the yellow river flowing through the middle of the MOC, and then over to the further right, you have like the dark tan sand. There's just so much to really appreciate about this MOC. I imagine this is one of those builds with a story behind it. I unfortunately didn't grab the caption for you guys, but just looking at this and trying to figure out what's going on, looks like we have a group of Jedi along with a couple of 41st clone troopers, and they are basically just kind of flowing through this river trying to get away from the separatists. You can see there's a stap in the back with a battle droid on it, and I really love the way he's kind of positioned the two main figures at the front with like the head just kind of sitting on the water and then the arms basically trying to keep the characters afloat. I think that looks great. That's a good technique if you guys want to have figures seeming like they're mostly submerged in water. That just looks really good in my opinion. We got a dwarf spider droid over to the right side of the MOC, and even the skull of some animal, which is kind of a cool addition to add to the MOC. Just adds basically a built-in backstory to the MOC. I always like the inclusion of little elements like that. It's very reminiscent of the crate dragon skeleton we see on Tatooine. It basically just tells you things have been happening here long before what you're seeing is happening. I just think this build overall is very appealing to the eye. I like the dichotomy of like the lush vegetation over to the left side, and then over to the right side you kind of have the droids coming in, and it's a little bit more desolate even with an animal carcass on the ground. It's almost like this MOC is a metaphor for the left side, what your planet might look like when it's left alone, unbothered, and the right side, what it might look like when the droids come in and start tampering with things. The final MOC we're going to take a look at today is freaking awesome. It's an Theed MOC from Etel Enzos, and there's so much to like about this MOC. This is one of those MOCs that I could absolutely see as a Lego set at some point. It'd be a big one, but there's just so much in here that would make a classic Lego Star Wars set. I think that Lego would be crazy to not do something like this at some point. So this is just an overview of the outside of the build. You can see we have that classic Theed type of architecture. It's just beautiful. I love the white statue builds that are up on the front on either side of the staircase. There's the archway over the stairs. Just all of this is very reminiscent of Theed, even down to the domes on all of the buildings. It looks so good, and I think the rock work over to the right side also looks really nice. I think the backside of this MOC really reveals how just excellent this could be as a Lego set idea. Like if Lego did something like this on 2 base plates, or even if you just wanted to build something like this for your personal collection, if you wanted some sort of Theed build but didn't want to have to build it out on a ton of base plates, I think this is an excellent alternative. You can see that the MOC is segmented into various rooms. Over to the right, we have the giant generator room where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon take on Maul. Between those, we have a hallway with a battle droid taking on a Naboo security guard. To the left of that, we have the meeting room where they sit around and talk, as most prequel characters do. Up top, we have a balcony where Padme is looking at a bird. And then over to the left side, there's another hallway with a Naboo pilot taking on some battle droids. So the builder actually set up some pretty fun scenes on this MOC, one of them being the celebration at the end. So you can see he has Padme holding the big glowing orb thing that they celebrate with. I think it's actually a really good looking episode 1 Palpatine. Like honestly, I kind of want one of those for my collection. That Doc Brown hairpiece works really well for his episode 1 character, and they're just surrounded by the rest of the Jedi that show up at the end of the movie. We have the Gungan celebrating in the street, and there's Naboo citizens on either side of them. Here's a better look at the battle scene going on in the generator room. One cool thing the builder did is that door on the back, he put red bricks behind it to simulate the force fields that are going up and down, like once they kind of go through that long force field hallway. I don't know what that hallway is all about, but I like the battle sequence set up with the main characters up front, and I think the snot build he did in the background with the purple plates kind of outlining the white bricks is a pretty nice way to simulate those big energy columns that they have going all throughout the building. Upon closer inspection, it looks like this is actually Padme's bedroom, which is kind of a cool thing to add into this build. This is maybe what a normal calm day on Naboo might look like, where she wakes up and she's hanging out, greeting the birds, looking out over the city that she governs. And here is the meeting room. I think the windows and the curtains that are basically the backdrop of this room look really nice. They're around the hologram table, sitting around trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Why is there a communications disruption? It has to be invasion. One thing I also liked about this build is the builder actually set up alternate scenes. So here we have the scene where the battle droids are basically walking around with like a Padme and the rest of her crew in custody, and then the Jedi jump down to start chopping down the battle droids to basically free them from captivity. And I really love that the builder did this scene. I love how the battle droids are getting wiped out, especially the one that's in the foreground that's just leaning over the rail. Now that I mention it, it's honestly kind of surprising to see they actually had handrails on Naboo, because those don't seem to be something we see too often in Star Wars. It's honestly like way too easy for characters to fall off of things, but looks like Naboo takes safety a lot more seriously than some other places in the galaxy. And then another alternate scene he sets up is where they storm back into the palace and they actually regain control of it. So here they're shooting down all the battle droids that are taking over in the Naboo palace. This is a pretty cool scene to set up, and I really wanted to show you guys these alternate scenes just to show you how fun a playset like this could be. Like if LEGO wanted to do a Master Builder Series Naboo set, I mean, this is a pretty big MOC. Maybe it wouldn't necessarily have to be this big, but basically something in this vein, I think it could go a really long way. There's so many scenes to recreate here. I think the one that's probably missing that could be a really cool play feature is maybe on one of these windows you could have the scene where they use their grappling hooks to basically go up and scale the side of the building. Seeing something like this come to life really shows me that it's a no-brainer for LEGO to do a set like this at some point. So you did an amazing job on this build. As soon as I saw it, I was just so excited by it because there's so many interesting things going on in it, and I really would like something like this in my own collection.